Hi, I'm Lisha Sterling, and I'm the developer coordinator at Geeks Without Bounds. I'm not really here today as a developer coordinator person. I'm more here in my education hacker role, teaching you guys some things that I think are really important about basic cybersecurity. This is not going to be about pen testing. This is not going to be about like the finer points of encryption. This is going to be getting past the hype, getting past the headlines, and talking about what are the real risks, showing you, so you can see for yourself what is actually going through the network when you send messages across it, and also giving you an idea of how your devices can be found, because being able to see these things helps you to understand a little bit better how to protect yourself. So I'm not going to go into super detailed technical explanations about things, but I will try to give practical advice and practical explanations. And if we have any time at the end, then you can certainly ask questions. And if we don't have any time at the end, my email address is lisha@gwob.org, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. Okay, so I normally teach this workshop with this handy dandy Prezi, and I may be using it a little bit tonight, but mostly I'd rather do sort of hands-on showing you stuff for the most part. But let's, for the sake of argument, just start with the Prezi. I'm going to leave it in small mode so that I don't have to go full screen, small screen, full screen, small screen. Okay, so so your computer, your data, your life, how secure is it? When I used to give this talk before the Snowden revelations, people had a much different idea of how secure their world was. And now you probably have a much more sober concept of the fact that the life you're living out on the web is being watched by people. And the Snowden revelations have been about, spying by the NSA and spying by GCHQ and, by inference, other government organizations as well. But really, they're not the only threats that we have. There are lots of people who are watching you for fun. And there are other people that are watching you for profit. So for fun and for profit. And so there are a few things that everybody pretty much knows at this point that you should have on your system. You should always have a firewall. You should always have antivirus. Safe browsing tools come with a lot of antiviruses. I'll be totally honest. I think educating yourself about safe browsing is better than having a safe browsing tool, because a lot of those safe browsing tools get in your way rather than helping you. And they can give a false sense of security. English, I can speak it. So actually, safe browsing tools, I'd say not so much. But if you feel really insecure and don't feel like you can learn how to browse safely, then okay, use it as a crutch. But the biggest, most important thing you definitely have to be on top of is your passwords. We're going to get really into the password issue a little bit later. But let me talk about the firewall first. So a lot of people think, well, I'm just on my home network, or I'm on the PS1 network and it's got a password. So the only people on this network are people that we trust, right? So I don't need a firewall. Well, no. This isn't part of what I'm going to demonstrate today, but actually it's quite easy to break your encryption on your wireless. I mean, I could sit here with AirCrack. Within 30 minutes, I would have your password and I'd be on your protected network. So that in and of itself is not enough to protect you. So having a firewall, even on your home network, that protects you from other devices that might be on your network is a good idea. Most sort of basic computing, your Windows, your Mac OS, your Ubuntu, they have firewalls with very simple, straightforward setups. And for most people, if you leave it on the defaults, you'll be all right most of the time. But make sure that you turn them on, because a lot of times the default is off. So then you turn it on, and then if the default is too tight, then release some things. So for the vast majority, I'm not talking about at your bank here. I'm not talking about, business cases. I'm talking about individual people. Turn it on. Most of the time, the defaults are fine. Antivirus. Everybody knows you need antivirus on a Windows machine. But a lot of people will say, oh, but I have a Mac. I don't need antivirus. Yes, actually, you do. There are viruses for Macs. There are antiviruses for Macs. And also the antivirus software for Macs will also look for other specific problems like rats, remote access Trojans. That's where somebody gets some malicious code onto your computer that can run everything on your computer, turn on your camera, oftentimes turning on your camera without even showing the little lights. They can watch you, they can track all of your keystrokes, and some people are using rats to get passwords and steal money. But actually, the vast majority of the guys with rats are just watching people in their house for fun. So yeah, it is really disturbing, and people will infect computers, check the computers to find out who they've got infected, and then sell them like hot blonde rats or, two gay boy rat. And those are for sale, and you can buy that for like $35. You get access, and you can watch those people in their living room. So you want to have antivirus. You want to be making sure that you don't have those things on your computer. Linux. Oh, I don't need antivirus. Yes, you do. Go ahead, download, install ClamAV. Exactly, ClamAV. Keep it up to date, just like you're keeping all your other software up to date. You'll be glad you did. It's not going to protect you from everything under the sun, but it will keep you much more protected. So let's talk about who the real risks are. Who are the threats? So we've got malicious jerks. That's actually a lot of the low-level risk. And when I say low-level, like they're not going to ruin your life. They may embarrass you if you find out about them. And they may do asinine things, but they're just being malicious jerks. There's nosy people like the government and your employers and maybe your Aunt Mabel. Okay, so maybe your Aunt Mabel is not that technically savvy, but I actually have a not that distant relative who goes out of her way to stalk me on social media, and and she figured out how to find pictures through the friends of friends connections. So even though she can't see my Facebook profile, she can still see pictures that are tagged by friends of mine who have things open to friends of friends. And she's constantly letting me know that, oh yeah, by the way, I saw that you were here. Grr. So, when it comes to a person like that, sorry, I did warn you, I never turn on Windows. Go away, warranty status. This is not the right time. Not now, not now. How do I make it go away? I do find it very humorous that I'm standing up here telling you about security while I can't make my... Prezi, come back here. Okay. So again, she's not really that big of a risk, but maybe somebody like that could be a big risk. I mean, maybe it could be an abusive boyfriend who's finding those things. Of course, there's thieves, people who want to pick up your passwords. And then there's resource thieves, because if I get some malicious software onto your computer, then I can use CPU cycles that you're not using. And that's all fine and dandy, as long as they're not doing something evil that then comes back to bite you, because the cops are looking for the source of those evil things that are happening, and they track it back to you, to your IP address, and then you're like, but I haven't done anything. And then they take your computer and they do forensics, and they're like, aha, your computer's been doing all this stuff. The cops have gotten smart enough to recognize the difference, for the most part, between a person actually doing a malicious thing and a person having malicious code on their computer doing a malicious thing. But still, it's not something you want to be facing down. And also, sometimes you find your computer just starts getting really, really, really slow, and you don't know why. And if you do a little bit of forensics on your computer, you discover that there's something that's using up tons of CPU cycles. And I'm having an adventure in technology tonight. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to an example here in just a minute, which we will cross our fingers that it works. So a lot of times people say, I'm not that important, so it doesn't matter. And the fact of the matter is, you are. If you work in an office, and let's say you're a secretary, you're an easy target. So let's say you work for an escrow office. Do they have escrow offices in Illinois, or do you guys do things through lawyers? Okay, let me just say, you work for a lawyer's office. So, so somebody wants to get at the money that's passing through the lawyer's office, right? And they know that the lawyers and the people that are close to the actual money and all of their systems are carefully guarded, and nobody puts USB sticks into them, and they've got all kinds of extra security to protect them. But they know you're just the secretary, and you just think, I'm no big deal. They pay me crap. Clearly, I'm not that important. And so you get some email and you click on a thing, and now your work computer is infected. And then you send an email to your boss with that docx file that he asked for, and now your boss is infected. And, that's one of the key ways that hackers can get into a company, through the people who thought that they weren't that important. And then there are all the other things that we were talking about just a minute ago, about your resources, the money that you have. So be aware of what the real risks are. So I'm going to skip off of this. I'm going to cross my fingers that this capture will really work. We're going to go into promiscuous mode. I have honestly never run this program in Windows. I think that doing pen testing and forensics in Windows is like a sad, horrible thing. Okay, so you see all that stuff that's up on the screen right now? That is traffic on the network here at Pumping Station 1. I'm gonna open up a thing. No, not that. Twitter. Yeah, Twitter's good. So Twitter, you notice that Twitter's HTTPS. Let me go someplace that's not HTTPS, like www.cnn.com. So here's another website. And, sorry, were you going to say something?
BBC.com?
BBC, yep. We can go to BBC. Oh, here's on my website talking about this. Yay, cybersecurity for everyone. www.bbc.co.uk news. So we've got a bunch of things. If somebody else wants to open up a website, you could do that too. I'll just let this keep running. So you can see here on the screen that we've got the source IP address for where something is coming from and the destination. We can see what protocol it is, and we can see what's going on. I'm going to stop this now. So that was just me sniffing the packets flying around on the network. Let me go find something that's TCP protocol. The other thing about Windows is the scrollies are backwards from Linux. So let me show you some HTTP. Let me find some HTTP. Okay. Not that, because that's not TCP. If you guys see something that says HTTP with no S on the end, holler at me, because I think I did too much S and not enough just regular HTTP. Yeah. So, you know what? I know that there's a way to filter for HTTP specifically, but every time I try,
down because the traffic's probably going to be grouped.
They're
a lot.
A couple of us went and hit other pages also.
okay. So, skipping down, reassembled, dump, reassembled. Come on.
I just pull that thing down.
What? Take the elevator bar and drag it down.
Take the elevator bar.
There's an HTTP right there.
Where'd he go?
The red ones?
No, the green one.
There we go. So this is the part that I'm hoping works. Yay, okay. So earlier I was having troubles making the follow the entire conversation work because I didn't have the right permissions set up. So so as you can see, we just sniffed things out of the air, and we can actually see what came down. This is the CNN page, right? So this is the conversation where I said, hey, CNN, could you please pass me a page? And CNN went, yeah, by the way, I'm running Nginx, which if I'm trying to attack something, that tells me exactly what I can attack them with. And here's some information about what I'm going to hand you. And then, here's, come down here.
All the files.
So this is, that's probably an image actually, because it looks all jumbledy. That's actually gzip encoded. But this, although it looks like it's, because this looks weird, you might think it's encrypted. Actually, if I copied and pasted this and saved it as a file, I could then open it up in the browser, no problem. And there are scripts that will do that for me, no problem. So I don't actually have to do any effort to make that happen. And we can also see, we should be able to see way down at the bottom here, some actual HTML. Nope, not on this stream. But
It is also telling the client side very clear because it's explaining which browser you use.
exactly, right. So you can spoof a server and you can spoof a browser. So it's not necessarily telling the truth on either side, but your average user sitting down to do something isn't going to spoof. You're just going to say what you are. So let's take a look. Let's see what TCP stream equals 31 is. Is that anything good? So this is HTTPS. And let's see what that looks like. So now you can see there's nothing here that we can take apart and figure out what it is. All of this is encrypted. So just by looking at this, I can't tell what was requested. I can't tell what was passed. Actually, I just saw something that looked almost like a string, but it wasn't.
The first line is something.
Yes.
The very first line, because that's where you handshake.
Just the clients who you,
Right.
who you go through.
So this is telling us who we are, right? Let's take a look at stream 33. I'm going to look for another HTTP. Ah, good. Here's another HTTP one. This one's text HTML. So what are you? So this is the same. I'm on Windows. So of course, because I'm doing this live, I'm getting just the non-texty ones. You're also HTTP with a lot of weirdness. Are you going to give me a nice...
There you go.
Oh, here's somebody with Safari. Oh no, this is the actual JavaScript. So that's what this is right here. This is the actual JavaScript coming off of here. You see content type application X JavaScript, and then it's giving us the variables, and this is the actual code that it's running. So why does this matter? If you're on HTTP and you send something from yourself to the server in clear text, like say a username or a password,
That's gonna be here.
it's going to be here. The person can see it. Now I've been doing this the slow way because I want you to actually understand, how somebody can find this. But there are scripts that are specifically looking for the word password, the word password, the word username, the word login. So by using scripts to go through all of these HTTP streams and just pull them out, they can find any of your vital data that's being passed across in HTTP. So this is why it's really important to make sure that on things that need to be private, you have that HTTPS right there. So that S stands for secure, and that S means that the conversation between you and the server is being encrypted. There's an unencrypted handshake, and of course there is metadata, right? So the metadata saying, hey, I'm talking to this guy. That guy is saying, hey, I'm talking to you. So if you're looking at an illegal site and the police are trying to figure that out, they're going to be able to figure out you're talking to an illegal site. But they won't actually be able to see what you've done there because it's all encrypted. But say on Google Mail, who cares if they know that you're talking to Gmail, right? I'm going to use Gmail. I'm not going to go through Tor. I'm not going to go through the onion router to hide the fact that I'm talking to Gmail. But I don't exactly want people looking over my shoulder, so to speak, reading what I'm sending back and forth, which is why in Gmail or whatever webmail you're using, you want to go in and you want to click that button for always use HTTPS. There's also a browser plugin. It's definitely available for Chrome, and I think it's also available for Firefox, called HTTPS Everywhere. And that will, for any site that you put in HTTP blah, 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 it will check to see if there's an HTTPS version, and if there is, it will force you over into HTTPS. It's a very good idea. Any questions so far? Okay. So I just want to say something about mischief makers. And at the time that I first wrote this, the Snowden stuff hadn't come out. So now it's more than just mischief makers. So some people are afraid of doing anything on the internet because somebody might do something bad. And it used to be that people were just afraid of anybody doing any kind of malicious code, or there's a virus or something. But now a lot of people are saying, well, the NSA is looking over my shoulder all the time. Maybe I shouldn't be on the internet. And, well, yeah, but you know what? The cops are watching you all the time too. There's CCTV cameras outside. There's networks that are tracking your face, and yes, they can recognize you. They've been recognizing you for ages. In 2008, I saw a demonstration of facial recognition that was pulling faces off of Facebook and tracking people with 90% success rate. So, I mean, that was 2008. I'm sure that it is much better now. So you can't just hide yourself in a box. You can, but you won't have a very good life if you do that. So decide what level of risk you want to take at any particular moment and take those risks. Decide what you want to share with the outside world and share those things, but also take the time to say, okay, there are certain things I'm going to pull back, and remember that it's not impossible. So I'm just going to take a short detour here onto the social media issue. As I was saying before, you need to pay attention to your privacy settings. I have a change of heart at this point regarding the whole privacy settings issue. I still send things out on various social media platforms to a specific group of people. But my logic for doing that now is so that I'm not spamming everything with things that they don't care about. I'm a weirdo. I'm an ice skating coach and a doula and a hacker. And frankly, the people who care about herbal medicine probably don't care about computer security beyond maybe this level. So I don't spam the two groups with the information the other group cares about. But in terms of the privacy issues, I no longer have any trust that anything that I send to one group alone is actually only going to be seen by that group. Because as we already know, Facebook keeps changing the privacy settings, and they keep messing it up. And we're trusting them when we set our privacy settings. So my current take on this is a lot more cynical than it was before, and that is, don't say anything on social media that you wouldn't say in a room full of people. Like, if you are willing to sit in a coffee shop and talk with your friend about whatever the issue, with the risk that people around you may be overhearing you, and maybe your boss is sitting at the next table, go right ahead, talk about those things. But if knowing that you were in the same neighborhood as your boss, and your boss might walk in and hear you having this conversation would make you nervous, don't have that conversation on social media. That being said, cryptography is your friend. Some people have become worried because one of the Snowden revelations was about how some kinds of cryptography have been subverted by the spooks. But in general, cryptography is still your friend, and the math is good. The ways in which cryptography has been subverted are fairly well understood at this particular moment. And the fact of the matter is that the reason that the NSA and GCHQ feel the need to create and hoard so many unknown vulnerabilities in our systems is because they can't get through the cryptography. So if we're sharing information cryptographically, the only way that they can find the information is to be on the computer itself when we decrypt things. So that in and of itself can give you a level of comfort that PGP really works. Now, that being said, there is a problem with some of the HTTPS in Firefox. And if you look up fix HTTPS encryption in Firefox, I'm sorry, I totally forgot to do this right before class. I meant to pull that URL up. I will send that to the list, and I will also add it to this Prezi after the class so that you guys can find it. So there is something that you should turn off in Firefox because there is a known not really cryptographic cryptography in there. But that being said, PGP, excellent. Most of the cryptographic standards that are being used in open source are still solid. And it's not really, I'm going to skip over that, by the way. We'll get back to that later. It's not really as scary as you think. It's not hard. And this is why I wasn't going to do this thing. Actually, you know what? So, I have a question for you guys. Would you like me to show you how to do email encryption right now? Or do you want me to go do some other things and then at the end show you the email encryption? Sorry? You want to do the email encryption now? Sure.
No, I just want, I know how to do that, and I always encrypt my emails because of the rule number 1.
Right, and rule number 1. So a lot of people don't think that if you're on, say, Gmail or Hotmail or something like that, that you can encrypt your mail. And you can. So I'll just give a really quick demonstration from my own mailbox. So I'm going to write a sweet letter to my boyfriend. You are a guinea pig. Guinea pig. Did I spell that right? Yes, I think I did. He's used to being a guinea pig in my classes. So this application or this plugin is called Mailvelope. And when I click this little button here, it gives me this additional window, and I can type whatever I want in here. Paul can read it. No one else can. Yay. Thanks for being my example, hun. Okay, so now all I have to do is click on this button and it will ask me who I want to encrypt for. No, I'm in Windows. Damn. So if I were in Linux, when I got to this point, I would have people's public keys here. So watch this nifty little trick. So that's gone, but I can go to pgpmit.edu, and I'm going to look up pmason126 at gmail.com. Going to do the search. Whoops, nope. Is that not his email? Am I doing his email wrong? Oh, you know what? paulmason126 at gmail.com. It also might be under his Hotmail account. There we go. So here's a way to find somebody else's key and to see if it's trusted. So I've signed his key, and Willow has signed his key. So I can be pretty confident that this is really his key. And here it is. I'm going to grab it. Now, I hadn't intended to show you guys how to set up Mailvelope right now, but we might as well. So Mailvelope is for Chrome. There is a Firefox version in development, but it's not finished yet. So first off, I need to generate a key for myself. And this is because I haven't imported my key from Linux, and we don't want to take the time for me to do that. So not my key. Not mine at scotlandhacks.org.uk. So I can go in here and I can change this information, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it at the word at the defaults. I'm going to enter a password. I'll make it really insecure, since this isn't really a key that I'm really going to use in real life. And now it's going to generate my key. And now if I go to display my key, I can see my key. Now I want to import Paul's key. So I copied it off of this page, as you will recall. And now I'm going to submit it. And now if I go display keys, we can see that I also have Paul's key. So now I can come over here and I can write that email again. I can write anything I want to Paul, and only he will know what I've said. And this time I click the button. Haha! Now I can encrypt this for Paul Mason. Now, if I was in my own email, I would also be adding my own key, because if you don't add your own key, then it'll be encrypted and you won't be able to read the mail you sent to other people. You need to encrypt it for yourself as well if you want to be able to read what you wrote later. I always just encrypt it as text, but if you've been using HTML, you can encrypt it as HTML. Now I've got my PGP message here, and I can just transfer it into that window. And now I can hit send. And off it goes. Now I've got actually an example of some, whoops, not that one, some email that is encrypted and is totally not private at all. So this one, this is actually for public consumption. He's just asking me if it's good enough for what I asked him to do. So here I've got an encrypted mail that's come into me on Gmail. I click the button. Oh God, no, I don't have the private key because it's over in Linux. So what I would do is I would click that button, and I would have the private key because I would be in Linux. I would put in my password that I had set for that, and then I would be able to see the email. And I'm really, really sorry. Before the next time I do one of these, I will make sure that my display works okay in, a real operating system. Anyway, so as I showed you, it's really easy to do email encryption. You can do it for Gmail, You can do it for other sites as well. You'll notice that here on this watch list, it has a fairly limited number of sites that it's watching, but you can add anything you want here. So I've helped people who are on corporate websites that are using like Outlook, Exchange, web interfaces, put their corporate interface into this so that when their browser is on that site, they have access to their encrypted email. Now, you will want to export those keys. So you'll want to, you'll want to export your keys and make sure that you have your private key saved someplace else, because if anything happens to that computer, that hard drive, or whatever, you're going to need that private key. But also, you want to have copies of all of your friends' keys so that you don't have to go looking them up every time. Any questions? Yeah?
I do. Is it a possible way, which is actually I've heard about, the provider, I mean the mail service provides you a secure channel, which is like, can you use SSL certificates for that? Is that a way to?
So that will secure, just
connection, I know that.
right, it just secures your connection. And I encourage that. I mean, whatever mail service you're using, use the secure layer, right? But that's not securing the mail while it's sitting on your computer, while it's sitting on the servers. And it may sit on many servers because it makes many hops, and more than one server may actually pick it up and just hold on to it. You don't know. You don't have control over it. Again, I hate saying Snowden, but, we already know that there are machines that are literally soaking up all the data that it possibly can and just holding on to it. You don't know what's happening with that. If it's in a space where the data is not encrypted anywhere along the way.
But for minimal security, if you send in your emails, is that idea to use a secure level?
Absolutely.
Secure layer.
Use the secure layer. If you're using HTTPS, if you're using webmail, use HTTPS all the time. Whatever secure layers the service offers internally, take those. If you're using POP mail or IMAP mail, make sure that it's using TLS, which is the secure layer that is used for POP. Yeah. So SSL or TLS. So every layer that can be encrypted, encrypt the baby, because that's just a little bit more protection. I mean, think of it in terms of on your front door, you have the little lock inside the knob, and then you have the bolt lock, right? And I know that at my boyfriend's house, if we have the little lock locked, but the big lock isn't locked, and our house gets broken into, insurance won't pay. Think about it that way, okay? And encrypt your stream, that's your little lock. Encrypt your actual email, that's your bolt lock. Okay? So what about IM? Yes, you can encrypt your IM. If you are on Linux, I recommend that you use Pigeon, not Empathy. If you are inside of Google, like Gmail, I'll show you this on my own Gmail again. Mail.google, come on. So our internet is going to be slow. So if you are in Google and you're in a chat, actually I don't even know if they even allow this in, I'll pester Bilal. Options, oh hey, nope. It doesn't even offer off the record anymore. Yeah, it used to offer off the record. So,
It wasn't, it was not encrypted.
right, that was my point that I was going to make. So it used to offer something that it called off the record, but it was fake off the record. By off the record, they meant that they just didn't save it in your email like everything else, right? But real OTR, real off the record, is encrypted. So if you've got the old Google Chat still, because some people still do, especially if they've not taken up Google Plus, and you see that OTR, don't trust it. It's not OTR. But Pigeon does use true OTR. Pigeon is also available for Windows. If you're on a Mac,
You can use audio.
yeah, I was. If you're
It's only one option to actually provide encryption to the users.
exactly. So ADM is your Mac option all the way. It has OTR. So one of the projects that I'm working with some students in Glasgow on is adding OTR encryption into Empathy, but we haven't gotten very far. We're not the only ones who are working on it. So hopefully one of the groups will will get that, because Empathy is the default chat, but it's not there yet. So for now, until there is OTR, use Pigeon, do encrypt your chats. And again, I'm really sorry. I don't have Pigeon on my Windows partition because I don't use my Windows partition enough. Otherwise, I'd show you exactly what I was talking about. So one of the things that I find really interesting, and you should try this sometime after you install ADM or Pigeon, is have a conversation with somebody that's OTR in Pigeon or ADM through Gmail, right? So using the Gmail addresses. What'll happen is the little window that pops up over here in the corner for your chats will pop up, and you'll be able to watch this stream of gobbledygook fly by. It's really kind of cool. And it's also a good way to test to make sure that your OTR really is OTR. Because sometimes it's broken when you first install it and you need to do a little fiddling. So if you want to double check, that's a good way.
Can I provide an example?
Sure.
Right now, we're working for chat between employees. Usually, they almost all my face. So the only one thing they allow to chat between each other using only audio and only encrypted chats. There is no way and no
other option?
No other option. They will not allow you to do that. Otherwise, they will not just provide you the account. They will see you in the chat without encryption, and they will see you really quick.
Right. They will see you really quickly.
Network team working really quick.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things about programming is that there's lots of ways to scan data as it flies past for words, any words. And if you're looking for something that's not encrypted, you can find that very quickly. Okay, so moving right along. Don't forget your phone. Your phone can also have all sorts of wonderful encryption. Don't ask me about iPhone, because honestly, there is nothing actually secure that I know of for iPhone. That does not mean that there's nothing secure that exists for iPhone. It means that I am unaware of any real security features for iPhone. I also don't trust any operating system on a device that I didn't install myself, which is why I get Android devices and I wipe them and then reflash them. But I'm a little over the top, and you don't have to be that over the top. But that being said, the Guardian project has a number of tools that you can use for encrypted calls, encrypted SMS, encrypted chat on your cell phone. Even if you're out taking pictures and you want to obscure people's faces for their privacy and protection, there is something called Obscuracam. I think that's what it's called. Now, all of the Guardian Project tools that are production ready are available on the Google Play store. So you do have access to those. And I believe that they're also available in a couple of other ways as well. And if you're somebody who likes to sideload things from your computer, that's available too. But, go check out the website, guardianproject.info/apps, see what they've got, and then you can just use Play to install them. And you know what else you should encrypt? You should so encrypt your hard drive. So this kind of depends on what you're concerned about and what your level of worry is. So I always do full disk encryption because, like I said, the first thing I do with a device is get rid of whatever was there before, with the exception of, I always keep a Windows partition for those moments when, oops, you need the Windows partition, or when I need to explain to my dad how to do something in his Windows, which is the real reason why I need to learn Windows 8, so that I'll be able to explain things to my parents. But, so full disk encryption, if you're installing an operating system from scratch, is a very good idea. TrueCrypt allows you to encrypt portions and even encrypt something and then encrypt something on top of that, so that you've basically got sort of multi-layered hidden drivicles. That's not the word that they would use. It's just, it popped into my head. So, but you have multi-layered hidden bits. So you can say, oh yes, I'll open that for you, give a password, and they look at it and they go, there's nothing here. And what they don't know is that that's actually the drive in which the encrypted drive is actually hidden. And so they just didn't go down the rabbit hole far enough. Another thing that you can do if you're doing something that's particularly worrisome, say you're an activist and you know that the cops have been tracking Occupy people, I'm just using this as an example, and you're trying to, protect yourself from some wildly unjust whatever the hell it's going to be. So you can do your Occupy stuff inside of a virtual machine, and always do all of your Occupy stuff inside that virtual machine, and then wipe out the virtual machine when you need it to go away. The virtual machine, when you set it up, can be encrypted so that nobody can open it up just willy-nilly. And it's also everything is in one distinct thing, so you can destroy it relatively easily in a way that even if you didn't, shred the hard drive and physically destroy the hard drive, it's still going to be much more difficult for forensics to figure out what the heck was going on in that device. So, no. Actually, I'm gonna back up out of this and go back to something that I skipped over early. No questions. Yes, go ahead.
Encryption, or actually, I don't know what you really call it, but like a dual layer encryption, and just say, let's just say a fellow likes to play games, but he doesn't want to have performance aggregation on his laptop or anything like that. What have you found within Linux and within Windows 7 or Windows 8, whatever?
Oh, okay. So the question was about performance drops when you've got encryption, especially with layered encryption. And so if you're doing something like games, then my personal take is this is a high resource thing and a low risk thing. Like I'm not too worried about somebody finding out about me playing Grand Theft Auto. Now, if my mom really doesn't like me playing Grand Theft Auto and I'm 16, I might be running that inside of a virtual box. So I better have a lot of memory to make up for that. If you've got tons of memory and a nice fast CPU, you'll be fine. But other than that, you always have to balance, like, how important is this that I keep this secure? And I think that most of the time, you're not going to have those big performance issues. Actually, I'm even thinking about the game thing. So games, even the performance drag would be when it's loading up, because things are going to be pulling off of the hard drive. But once it's sitting there in memory, then now it's in memory just like it always would have been. So still, like there might be points of drag. But again, if you have a really fast CPU and you've got a lot of RAM, you're probably not going to notice it anyway. So if you've got a gamer's laptop, you're cool.
Quick question. What about the secure security for mobile platforms and the desktops? Is there any concerns about it? And it's like, is there any difference supposed to be applied for?
So
There's like,
say
so like what I'm trying to say is like, is it necessary to encrypt drives, for example, on laptops because it's a mobile platform and they can be stolen much easier than in desktops,
Right.
for example?
So that's funny that you should mention that, because I don't even think of desktops when I think of computers anymore. Like my instant thought is all computers are mobile computers, aren't they? Oh yes, that's right. There are desktop computers that don't go anywhere. But yes, and they can be locked, and certainly there are different issues there. Certainly when it comes to mobile, like you're saying, mobile devices can be stolen.
Yeah, or
So
just, like, they're much easier transferable.
right, it's much easier to take them off of you. So one of the concerns that a lot of people have is when you're crossing a border, they can now take your device and copy your device. They don't have to have any reasonable suspicion at all. There doesn't have to be any reason. They can simply take your device off of you. And I don't know exactly how long they have before they have to give it back, but they can actually take it off of you and not give it back to you for days or, I don't know, maybe weeks. So what do you do about that? Well, encrypt, right. So encrypt. And actually this reminds me that there is something that I wanted to say about this. You will see that I have a fingerprint reader here. Don't use it. Americans, don't use it. Other people, it probably doesn't matter. If you're in the UK, they can force you to hand over your password. So if they want your data, they're going to get your data, or you're going to sit in jail, whatever, your choice. Here in the US, they cannot force you to give your password because that's a speech item. They can force you to give your fingerprints. So password your encryption. Don't use fingerprints or retinal scans or anything else. Unless you're going to do, two-factor authentication, right? Like if you're going to use your fingerprint and a password, great, that you've just increased your security. But if all you used was your fingerprint, you just decreased, or your eye, or your saliva, or your DNA, whatever kind of biometrics. Your biometrics are not protected from the police in the United States. Your password is, at least at this moment.
One suggestion is also to mail your phone or whatever electronic device, if either mail it into the country or mail it out of the country so that you bypass.
Right. So that bypasses the airports, but I'm not confident that it bypasses the danger, and in some countries it may actually increase your danger of losing the device or losing the data, control of the data, I should say. So my take is still transfer it on your person if you need to bring a physical thing. If you're trying to get data across borders and you know that you're going to have problems, I mean, I don't know what journalists dealing with the mess are doing right now, but I think what I would probably do is encrypt the data that I wanted, send it over encrypted lines and through a virtual private network to another location that I felt secure about, which would also be an encrypted drive, preferably. And then when I got to my end location, I would then connect to a virtual private network and probably even use Tor on both sides of it as well. By the way, does everybody here know what Tor is? Because I totally skipped over saying anything about Tor. So Tor is the onion router, and I don't really talk about it in this particular workshop because I think that it's a little bit above the technical capability of most people who are just approaching this very basic level. The exception is if you do need to know that what you're browsing is private, that nobody can tell what your endpoint is, then what you want to do is you want to download the Tor browser bundle and do the super secret things that you need to do in the Tor browser bundle. Now, remember when I said earlier that in Firefox there's a problem, with HTTPS? So why would there be a problem with HTTPS in Firefox? It's actually a very obvious thing. I don't know if anybody's actually said this outright, but it seems completely clear to me. Tor browser bundle has been bundled with Firefox since there has been a Tor browser bundle. So if you were trying to break who was doing what in Tor, and you can't break Tor, so you're going to break a system that's just, slightly above that isn't getting the same kind of paranoid scrutiny. So they went after Firefox. Oops. But that's been fixed. It's a known problem, and it's been fixed. And if you download the Tor browser bundle now, it should be set correctly. And like I said, you can look up the fixes online. So, was there something that I left halfway said before I skip into the traveling incognito? Is there something that I need to?
What about using Tor? Isn't there you can't log your email or this way you can give up your anonymity?
Right. So if you're using Tor, actually I should combine this with the traveling incognito to be totally honest. So if you're using Tor, the way that Tor works is you want to go to this site over there. So you write down, imagine this analogously, you write down a thing inside of an envelope, and you close up that envelope, and you, on the envelope, put the address of the guy over there. Now, he gets the envelope, and he opens the envelope and takes the secret thing out. Now, he can't see what's inside of the secret envelope. He can only put that inside of another envelope. So he puts it inside of another envelope and sends it to him. And then he can't see who I am because the part of the envelope that says who I am is gone, and he only knows him, and he knows where the thing needs to go. So he passes it to where it's supposed to go. And then when it comes back, the addressing does the opposite. So those two know, each other. Those two know each other, but he doesn't know who I am. In fact, he doesn't even know who I am. So that means that I'm anonymous to him. Okay? So that is sort of the theory, high level-ish, of how Tor works. Now, if he's Google, and I just told him, hey, I'm Lisha, so now he knows. Now, my browser, once I've said, hi, Google, I'm Lisha, my browser keeps that information and shares that information with other websites that also have Google code in them. So now everything that I connect to that has Google Statistics on it, or is using Google Fonts, or any other Google code that is pointing back at Google, every single one of those sites has now identified me as being me going to that site. So yes, if you are trying to stay anonymous, you need to actually keep yourself anonymous. Like, don't log into anything with any login that you use anywhere else. Any logins that you're going to use within that Tor space should be your special magical Tor logins.
One thing, it is
A lot of concerns about like being ungoogleable, like totally get off from the social networks and everything. The one thing that I found was really interesting when I installed the Linux Sniff, it is a different search engine, which is DuckDuckGo. And the first one, it doesn't track you, and it's also do not collect any information that you are entering in this search engine.
Right.
Which is really really interesting, and it's like I think this is one thing that we're supposed to provide like security advice for the users who are trying to like go through and find the stuff, but they don't want to use the major search engine like Yahoo, Google, Bing, whatever.
Right, absolutely. If you're going to be using search and you are concerned about the privacy of your searches, DuckDuckGo is absolutely a great option to be using, and using DuckDuckGo while you're inside of Tor is probably a good idea. Remember what I was saying about Google, I was just using Google as an example. That goes for anything else that you sign in on. Like if you sign in on Twitter, Twitter shares information with other sites. Facebook shares information with other sites. Just don't sign into anything with any kind of user that you ever use elsewhere. Yes?
Start page is another one that doesn't
Start page?
start page.
Which-
It's a search engine.
Oh, okay. I don't know about Start Page. So, startpage.com. I just saw something that said Start Page virus. That's worrisome.
Powered by Google, no.
Yeah, it does. It does say enhanced by Google.
So this is
So
not.
I would not.
I think they're trying what Blackle did.
Sorry?
What was it, Screwhole?
Black hole.
Yeah.
The black hole. I've heard about it.
This might just be a proxy to Google.
Yeah, it might be just a proxy to Google, so it might be.
It was never part of Google. They added Google on later on so that people could Google.
Right. Okay, so I would do a little bit more, me personally, I would do a little bit more research before I wholeheartedly said, yes, do this. But it looks like something definitely worth investigating. It sounds from the front page like it's a good option. So let me tell you about incognito and about identities. So when you're logged into Chrome, you can be logged in to a specific identity, and you can have multiple identities in Chrome. Firefox allows you to do this as well, I think. Yeah? Okay. So, as you can see in my Windows version, I have two identities here, my work one and my me one. So when I'm here, I'm functioning as Lisha Vita. When I'm here, I'm functioning as Lisha Sterling, the awesome.
Much harder to do in Firefox.
Huh?
As far as I can tell, it's much harder to do in Firefox.
Okay. So here, if I go to mail.google, so I want to point something out here that, not again. No. Okay. So I want to point out that I can tell really easily that I'm in me or I'm in work. So this is me, this is my personal browser, and when my personal email comes up in a second, you've seen it already, but just as a visual cue, I wanted to show it to you again. And you can see that this browser also looks different. The colors are different. I have a different face up here. I have a puppy. So I have a number of other identities that I use for different projects that I'm working on. And for every identity that I have a browser login, I use different colors and I use different pictures because you don't want to poison your identities. Now, it's not that big of a deal if I do that between my personal and my work at this particular moment, because my personal and my work are so tightly, interwoven at this particular moment. But maybe it's a really big deal for you. I mean, maybe if your boss found out that you were involved with a hacker space, that would be a horrible thing because they don't understand what hacking really is, and they just have this idea that it's all about breaking things and being bad. Or maybe you're not out as gay, and if your boss or your coworkers found out, that would be a horrible thing. So be careful about cross-pollinating your identities. Keep visual cues to make sure that you know the difference. And travel incognito. If you're gonna go someplace where it matters, oh, here, by the way, that's my work email, that's my personal email. I can't possibly confuse the one for the other, right? Okay, so let's say I want to do something incognito. I want to go someplace and I don't want to have it tracked. So I don't need the level of Tor stuff. I just don't want this website to pop up when I start typing something similar, right? So I always use porn as the example for this. Wouldn't it be so embarrassing if you were sitting there in front of your kids and you start to type popcorn or something in the browser and instead PornoTube showed up and you're like, you didn't see that, kid, right? That would be horrible. So, so in order to make sure that doesn't show up while allowing you to keep all of the other history stuff that maybe you like, maybe it's convenient in your regular area, you can use an incognito window. Now you'll notice this incognito window is still essentially logged in to Lisha Vita at Gmail. Okay, but so essentially, I am trusting that this particular Google Chrome is not sending any information back to Google. Google says that they're not. I haven't read the source code, but that being said, with an incognito window, the cookies are all deleted immediately as soon as you close your incognito windows. Any of the other data that you can erase in security with a click of the button can be erased just by closing the window. and the history is erased. So you won't have that show up in your history when you do Control H, and you also won't have it show up when you start to, type something in here, right? So it's not going to be there. It'll be gone. And you'll notice in Chrome, you've got this guy that tells you that you're in incognito. Again, it's a visual cue. But again, be careful with this because as you, I'm sure, notice, this looks just like my Lisha Vita browser aside from that guy in the corner. So you have to be a little bit more careful about not crossing over. If you are doing really things that are really important, that you keep it secret and hidden, use that Tor browser bundle. Remember that you're only using the Tor browser for the Tor-worthy things, and don't let the streams cross.
Sorry again, this is a really important, and I always keep it in my mind when I first start what's this meeting is going to be about. I got it in my head and I forgot it now. I got it back. So these all techniques, they are actually very useful if you are using a public, not a private network, but a public network, because it's like sitting in any public places like coffee shop, here at the pump station. So you trust these people, but there can be someone else who just for fun or with some malicious interest can also break into your data. Mm-hmm. So these techniques actually very good to apply for this purpose. That's what I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I think even at home, it's also good to remember that just because you think that your home network is private doesn't necessarily mean that your next door neighbor hasn't run air crack and broken into your network.
What if you just run it open?
All the more, like, all your neighbors are going, yay, free internet. So.
I remember when we first got the cable modem, and then you're seeing like access points, and it's like you were seeing other people's computers on their home network.
Right.
And then it's actually my Windows was like, oh, here's your
Here's all the information.
all the neighbor, here's your neighbors.
Right, exactly. It's so.
It's other hard drive. It's like
That's
like 5 or 8 years ago.
But that's one of the reasons why I say even at home, you still want to run firewalls on your computers. And it's also, especially with laptops, what you were saying before about mobile things. With your laptop, if you've always got your firewall on, you're not going to forget to turn it on when you sit down at the coffee shop.
One more thing.
That I can highly suggest for the people who are really concerned about their security at home, is that really good to exchange, for example, firmware on their router? That's what I did for mine. I found a compatible router for the WRT. Of course, I exchanged it with the latest one, dig inside the firmware as deep as I can. So I found a lot of things that's not secure by default, and I fixed it.
So that's one of those things where, at this moment, people who are highly technically competent can get into that sort of thing and feel comfortable with it. The average person may want to have that level of security, but is not going to have the time or patience to get that deep into it. So certainly for somebody who really cares about their privacy to that level and to their security to that level, the other thing I was going to say was, if you care about your security to that level, then get yourself technically educated by whatever form necessary. If you care that much, then you care enough to go learn about it and stick your nose in some code and to figure it out. It seems really scary, but once you actually start sticking your nose in, it's not nearly as bad as you think.
Could you speak to Tails at all?
That's true. I didn't even think about that. So again, this is kind of a thing that I give for sort of ordinary people. This is the noob-related conversation, but if for just a slightly higher level of courage, let's put it that way, you can use Tails. If you're not afraid of using a live distribution, so that means an operating system that you're running off of a USB stick or a CD or a DVD, like that over there. So Tails is basically a Tor. It's not just a browser bundle, it's a whole operating system that all of your network traffic will be run over Tor. So that's actually the safest way to use Tor outside of a browser, because one of the pitfalls of Tor is that people set up Tor and they think that they've set up their system to use Tor as their proxy for everything, and really they've only got Tor running as their proxy in that one browser, or maybe they've set it up in one or two different tools, but then they're sitting in IRC and their IRC is not going through the Tor proxy. With Tails, everything is going through Tor.
And when you turn the power off,
Everything is gone,
I've had a lot
right?
of success with that with absolutely non-technical users, because you give them a U3 that you can put in read-only mode. So I just give them a disk. I say press F12, select USB, hit enter, you're done. They can do 3 buttons, and for people who don't.
That's true.
Three buttons.
If you do have somebody who can hand you a ready-made disk and just get you to boot yourself, be aware that if you've got a read-only disk, that anything you do during that time, it's gone. It's gone. It's not sitting on your hard drive, and it's not sitting on your USB disk. But it allows you to have the communication that you need to have. Maybe maybe blog on a dark web blog if you're, I try to avoid things that are going to make it look like bad things are happening around the corner. So I'll just euphemistically say, if you're a Chinese dissident, because that's safe, it's over there. If you're a Chinese dissident and you're worried about somebody coming in and taking you away, but you need to get things out into the world, then you still need to blog, you still need to get the information out. And that's a very good way, using Tails as your entire operating system while you're doing those things. So it also protects you somewhat from needing to have a computer that is your nothing but the security stuff computer.
One of the cool features on Tails is they have an on-screen keyboard, and that against the possibility of having keylogging in that you can't trust your PC.
Right. Yeah. It's true, you can't. So, one last thing about traveling incognito. Whether you're using Tor or not, when you're traveling incognito, turn off any of your extensions. There are a number of extensions that have conversations with servers about what you're doing. They may have perfectly valid reasons for doing that. Maybe they're trying to figure something out about how their system works. Or maybe it's actually a function of what they're doing. Maybe in order to do the thing that they're doing, they have to talk to the server to get information.
Maybe not.
Nope. Hold on a second. Let me. It stopped. That's good. Sorry about that. I hope that it doesn't start ringing again. If all else fails, I'll dive underneath there. So turn off all your extensions, because your extensions can blab about who you are and what you're doing.
When you do that, there's a key combinations to do that?
By default, they should not be on.
So if you're in the Tor browser bundle, by default, they will not be on. Let me show you something here. So in Chrome, down here is where you set your users. Okay, so if I take a look at cancel, oh, so show advanced settings. No, it's the extension. This is separate. It's the security stuff that says when you're, okay, maybe you're right. Extensions.
So they should have the allow incognito mode thing, which is by default. And when you
Right,
open
there
it,
we go.
it yells.
So these guys say allow an incognito mode. By default, this is turned off. And you may have one that you want to turn on. So for instance, my proxy switchy, I've got that turned on because proxy switchy is my friend when I'm in an incognito, right? It allows me to switch my proxies from one to the other and go back and forth easily without having to go in and mess with lots of stuff. I've already set up the proxies. But most of these things I wouldn't want to allow to run incognito because they speak back to the server. Okay. All right. So we are nearly 9 o'clock. Let me skip. We did that. We did that. We talked about that. Okay, so remember what I was saying about the safe browsing? I personally think that for the most part, safe browser tools are more of a hindrance than they are of a help. But there are some basic things that you can simply know and stand by. When you see a thing that says, you have a virus, ignore it. Just close it. Close it quickly, in fact. Don't click on it. If you're concerned that maybe something on your computer is telling you the truth and you really do have a virus, then manually go and run your antivirus full scan yourself. And then if it says you have a virus, then you can believe it. But if something just pops up randomly, that is usually a scam trying to get you to download their virus.
So for that,
It can be too late for that for only one reason, because it's like this summer I do have a lot of experience with users who just like will appear with a laptop or desktop and they just like, hey, look what it is. It's like, this is my main screen, I cannot go anywhere, and I got this like huge message all over my screen telling me that the FBI is watching my data, I screwed up something else, and now they want to like a code to unblock it or something like that.
Right.
Or they will tell like, this is a virus affecting your computer, to delete this virus you need to like send this money to this address or like to this account or something. And it's like, it's too late because they already like click the like you have a virus, and it's of course they download all the malicious software on their computer and now they totally screwed up.
Right, and so on that front, don't download any antivirus from any place that you aren't absolutely positively sure is really, really the antivirus you want. Be very picky about your antivirus. If you are unsure what antivirus to pick, go ask your technical friends. Go find yourself a hackerspace and ask your friendly hackers at the friendly hackerspace. What's a good antivirus changes from year to year. So, I mean, it used to be that McAfee and Norton were absolutely what I would always tell people to download. Now I like don't. I mean, if you're on Windows now, Kaspersky's pretty good, and there are some others that are pretty good and pretty reliable. And who knows, like next year, Kaspersky may be the horrible antivirus that everybody has that's actually eating up tons of resources and is practically. It is. So.
I remember the Kaspersky from the 4.5.
So I mean, talk to other people. I don't run Windows very often, so I can't really speak to Windows antiviruses, but talk to people that you trust about what's a good antivirus to use. Do any of you guys have like a Windows recommendation for antivirus that you would actually tell people?
Vast hasn't been terrible, but
On the whole, I think all of our recommendations to anybody are pretty much useless. The ransomware that you were talking about has been popping up as one of the number one scams to run.
Right.
Because it's a lot easier to do than break into someone's email and find their PayPal and that kind of stuff. It's just like the attackers are running.
No, but so my counter to that is that the attackers are winning because people are still going, oh, I need antivirus, and downloading whatever the hell, or, clicking on links that say, here, have this antivirus, instead of going to a reputable place when they first need their antivirus and then sticking with it. And when you see something that says you need new antivirus, ignore it. Like, the only place you should be going for antivirus updates is the site of the company that you already have antivirus for, and no place else. And it should say in the browser that it's that company, and you should double check. Don't click on links that may or may not be going to that place. That is the biggest way that they get you, through phishing. Yes, I'm sorry.
Someone online recommended Windows Defender when you were asking.
Windows Defender.
Yeah.
Okay. So Windows Defender, and you said Avast has not been terribly bad. So yeah, the question of can we protect people from the malware? The biggest thing is don't click those links. Don't click the phishing links. Don't fall for the bait. And the more you become aware of what phishing links might look like, the less likely you are to fall for the bait. So if you see a message, and this happens a lot on social media, did you see that picture of you? Don't click it. There is no picture of you. And you know what? I'm really horrible. Like, it's really good social engineering, because I know it's a scam, and yet it still drives me crazy. What if it really is a picture of me this time?
This is going to be a message like, see what I found that you did.
Right. They're talking about you. That's another one that I've seen. Have you seen what they're saying about you? And when you see that, ignore it. If it's one of your friends who says something like that to you in a message, don't click on the link. Message them back and say, no, what are they saying? And then if they send you another link, don't click it again. Just get them to tell you, or maybe call them up on the phone and say, I think you might have been compromised. What are they saying about me? What is that picture? And then, maybe you'll feel a little bit better. If it's coming from a total stranger, you can be pretty sure without even picking up the phone. Right. Don't click the button. Another one that's really common, this one's mostly on email, is I have your receipt for that thing. Or that purchase that you were talking about, $400 purchase from Mac. Some of these are really, really clever. Some of these look really, really, really real. And you think, somebody must have stolen my credit card and bought something from Apple. If they had stolen your credit card and bought something from Apple, they would not be using your email to do it with. If you are really concerned about this and you think that maybe it's really, really real, then go to your browser, type in apple.com or amazon.com or whatever other store it is, type it in yourself and go look for it. If you can't find it and you really, really think it's real, go ahead and call the company if you can, or send an email to their customer service and say, I got this thing and I don't think it's real, but I want to check. Or I got this thing and I think it might be real, but I didn't do this. Don't click the buttons. Don't go there. It's phishing.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Please, I love stupid questions.
Cool, because you guys are all smart and I want to know your opinions. If somebody's dropping a payload in an email like that, why couldn't I just go to my phone and open it there to eliminate the payload? Or would that be?
So you don't know what the payload is. Okay. So I used to be confident because I wasn't running Windows and all of those things were based on Windows. So I could confidently click on the link and find out what the scam was, right? But they got smarter than that. And so some of the scams live entirely inside your browser. And so it doesn't matter. You've got a browser that it works on, you're screwed, right? Other things will detect which operating system you're using and will send you something depending on the operating system you're using. So far, I don't know of anything in the wild where one of those phishing mails would download a phone virus. Okay, I was going to say, I hadn't heard of it in the wild, but there's absolutely no reason why it wouldn't or couldn't, and therefore it will. And as they're saying, they do.
Windows has had many years, lots of security people. The phone is now tied to your email address, which is tied to your two-factor auth, which is, it now gets to be such a juicy thing. All the one-touch payments to your cell phone carrier.
Right.
And Android is such a huge shift.
Right. So, and the fact that Android is connected to your Google account and your Google Wallet, and with near field communication, you can tap things. By the way, I just want to say, I am anti near field communication. It seems like a very nice thing, but from a security standpoint, it's a very nice way to get malware onto your phone quickly. Just turn it off. Just don't do it. Like,
Sad to say that iPhone, the user has provided a decent security platform. I mean, you can say what it is for state actors and
right. Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the problem. It's like, either I have to be extremely careful not to accidentally download some malware, or I have to have a system that state actors and the companies that actually own my phone, like, AT&T or whoever, they have all my data and do all sorts of things I don't want them to do. So I have I have two choices. They are both not good choices.
I don't think that.
Open Moco!
Jolly or Jollo?
whatever happened to Nokia when they for new users, the state actors kind of off the table, right?
I have a friend who feels comfort in the security of not rooting her phone because apparently it's a little harder it makes it slightly harder to have operating system level viruses because of digital signatures and whatnot. But I do believe that it is better to put CyanogenMod on root your phone and put CyanogenMod on there. What's a good way of presenting that to somebody? Because I'm failing to convey that idea.
Okay, so there's a few things. One, there is antivirus for Android, and you should be running antivirus on your Android device. In the same way that you're running it on your Windows machine. That it will help. No antivirus will protect you from all possible viruses, viri, whatever. But you will give yourself quite a large level of protection over somebody who is not protected. And, I don't know entirely how to convince somebody who thinks that they're safer without CyanogenMod. There are a number of things that are being built into CyanogenMod constantly that are actually making CyanogenMod, another step and another step better option. The fact that things like encrypted chat are easier to get on CyanogenMod. The fact that they've done things to help you protect your privacy. The fact that that AT&T doesn't have the ability to watch everything that you're doing on your phone in the same way as they can if they own your operating system. Obviously, they can still see everything that's going across the network. But if you're using Tor on top of CyanogenMod and you're encrypting things, well, you've just defeated the telephone company.
Only one model officially. The only Moto X provided the developer edition of the phone, which is like basically just device with unlock and water. You can do whatever you want with it.
Right.
It's only one model that I found in the market, and I really looking for buying this device because I really love help with all of these things.
So, I would look on AliExpress for other phones that come unlocked automatically.
No, I mean, it's like, it is also...
So still have a warranty from the company provided.
Right.
Which is kind of you're avoiding the warranty, but they still provide a warranty for you, which is kind
For the hardware, basically, probably.
For the hardware, yes.
So yeah, I mean, you might be able to find something along those lines on AliExpress. I know I haven't looked into this for phones, but I did look into this at one point for tablets, and there were a number of producers that sell through AliExpress that were offering rooted and unlocked devices, basically built that way, with Android on them, and the warranty covered the hardware, and they expected you to put your own software on top of it. So like it came with Android, but they expected you to put CyanogenMod or some other ROM on it. So it's worth looking into.
What were those extra security features that CyanogenMod has? Can you go into those in more detail, or do you
So my brain is kind of going blank right now because actually there are a few things that they did early on that now have been kind of superseded by the fact that the Guardian project is now available to anybody through Play. There are a couple of Guardian tools that might still be only available for CyanogenMod and not for the rest of the world just because of permissions issues. There's also, do you know that the new tool that one of the CyanogenMod developers developed something really recently and then published it and asked hackers to look at the code and code audit it? Do you remember what that project was? My brain is like, it's gone. I remember all the details around it, and I can't remember what the thing was for.
There's a Chinese ROM with a really good firewall to it that I've been waiting for for a while because I'm not all that willing to run a Chinese developed.
Yeah. So I did some development on. I did development on like embedded development using something called Red Flag Linux, which is basically I used to call it the the only closed source open source operating system. It's Linux with certain parts of it that you can't see the code for, and you can only get in binary, and you have to mystically, magically figure out how to build your embedded tools around it if you want to sell them in China, or at least that was the case in 2008 when I was doing that sort of thing. Oops. Anyway, back to the phishing. This is a good one. Do you want to date with this hot person? Your answer is no, because if you click that link, bad things will happen. Okay, so there's two kinds of phishing before I move on. There's ordinary phishing, which is like this stuff, which is very general and plays on everybody's psychology. And we all want to know what that picture about us was, don't we? And we all get paranoid about somebody might be buying something using our credit card or using our account. That's perfect psychology right there. But then there's spear phishing. Spear phishing is when there's a phishing attack going after somebody in particular. And remember what I said before about you're a secretary at a company and the real target is the company or somebody else in the company, but they go through you to get there. So that's actually what happened to Adobe. And it's also what happened to the Chicago Tribune some years back, 2 years back, when was that? When Anonymous attacked the Chicago Tribune. They attacked the Chicago Tribune by sending emails to certain executive level people with links telling them to change their password. They clicked on them, they changed their password. So just because it's something that looks like it's coming from inside your office, don't trust that either. Be aware of potential spear phishing techniques. All of those same things that happen in the outside world, slightly adjusted versions can happen inside the work world, or, specifically going after something. It could be inside the activism world as well. Maybe the FBI knows you're hanging out with Occupy and they're trying to get at what's the next horrible thing where all these people are going to stand around in a park singing songs. That would be terrible. We don't want them to do that. And so they're trying to find out that information by spear phishing you.
Which park they will stand at.
Yes, which park are those terrible Occupy people going to do something horrible like they always do? Okay, so I just want to take another step and say, if you're a serious activist, or if you're, say, working in the financial industry, or even a lawyer, everything that we've said up until now is sort of a basic level. You want to ramp all of that up. Encrypt everything, and then encrypt the things that you've encrypted. Use virtual private networks so that nothing exists out on other people's public networks. Use the onion router to hide your identity. Use private browsing whenever you're doing private things, obviously. And always make sure you do not poison your identities. Keep your work identity separate from your daily identity. Keep your work and daily identity separate from your activism identity. If you are a journalist, for example, and you are dealing with lots of different, sources, thank you, English again. So you're dealing with lots of different sources. You may even want to go an extra step and have different identities with which you speak to each of your sources to help limit the amount of bleed across and the chances of you being caught. It depends on how worrisome it would be if the lines crossed and they figured out that this source and this source were from the same article, the same issue, or whatever. It's every time you're dealing with one of these security issues, there's the work burden versus the danger burden. You have to make these decisions. And if it's really dangerous, take the extra precautions. But always when you take those precautions, make sure that you're not letting the information from one side bleed into the other, or else all of your precautions will be for nothing. All right. So it's after 9 o'clock already, and we started really late. So I want to ask you guys really quickly, is it okay if I keep going, or do you guys want to go home? If anybody needs to go home, I will not feel at all hurt if you just get up and walk away from me, okay? I love you anyway. Okay, so so this is the part where we talk about keys left in the front door. So if you leave your front door unlocked because you think that nobody knows that your front door is unlocked and somebody walks in your front door, it's, not a good thing, obviously. So you lock your door. But a lot of people on the internet go a step further and they leave their front keys, their keys right in their front door. By that I mean they leave the default password on their internet-facing devices. So your router at home, when your router was set up and connected to the internet, who set up that router? Who set the password? Is the password the same password that the router came with? If it is, I can find your router. I can log into your network. I can change your network so you can't get onto your own network. Or I can get into your network and start snooping all of your data. So this is a search engine called Shodan HQ. This is a search engine for devices. Okay? So I can look up routers, I can look up printers. One night, my boyfriend and I looked up Caterpillar devices, and we were shocked to find out that there are apparently these great big Caterpillar mining trucks that are internet enabled. And you know what? If you go look up the default password, you will discover that there are actually great big mining trucks on the internet with default passwords. That's not good. That is so not good.
Why is that happen with the German attacks?
Yeah. So if you own a mining company, please make sure that your IT department changes the password on all of your mining trucks. For the rest of us, I just want to point out that here on Shodan, I can search for default password, and I can easily find many systems that are sitting on the internet that have defaults. Now, most of these were FTP servers saying disallowed by default, but some of these are actually set to tell you what the default is. Oh, look, root logon on. That's nice. So I'm not going to click through to any of these because I don't want to do anything illegal, obviously. But I want you to know that these things exist and people can find you, and people do. There are people who go through this just for fun of an evening, and there are other people who run scripts against the API in order to seriously attack certain things. So this, I think that this one is, these are wireless routers. Yeah, so these ones are routers, and if I went through and I clicked on a bunch of these, I would find some of them that were set to the default password, and I would find many others that were set to very simple passwords. No, go away. So make sure that you're not set to a very simple password. Make sure that you're not set to the default password. And then when somebody comes along and decides to look up all the HP printers, you'll notice over in that corner there are other options like SCADA and webcam and Cisco.
You can actually hack
There's a webcam which is like connected to the network, it's like using like security cameras.
Sometimes it's not really hacking. There's no password.
There's no password,
It's
right?
just a video stream of whatever.
Right. Actually, on the let me see, on the front page. Yep, there are people's home cameras.
That's on the internet.
There are, I think my login might have expired. That might be why. And by the way, I am not doing anything illegal right now because I'm using my Google account, and therefore it would be even aside from being on camera, so everybody can see what I'm doing. That's why I'm not going to click through to anything. But take a look at this. Red light cameras. There are red light cameras on the internet, and you can find them on Shodan. So what this means, if you're a lawyer or if you work in an office that has network connected printers, is that if your network connected printer is set to a default password, somebody can go in and tell the printer to email them everything you ever print off of that network connected printer. So every single legal document that gets printed off that printer is now in somebody else's hands. Just as an example. Where do you work? How bad would it be if somebody sent themselves copies of everything that you ever printed? Think about that. Be aware also that even if I can't get to your main router, and even if let's say you put your printer in the demilitarized zone, right, which is a zone that's allowed connection to the outside world, but is still kind of sort of on my network, right? Even if you did that so that you could print to the office printer while you were at a coffee shop with a client, if that printer has a default password and I can get into it, if I'm a skilled hacker, I can then escalate my privileges on that printer and make my way through your defenses on your network and get to the rest of your network. So don't leave the password as a default password. Go home, change your network passwords on all your devices. If there's two things you should take from this, it's change your passwords and encrypt all the things. So finally, I want to say something about a really good tool for passwords before I let you guys go. It's not the only one, but it's one that I like. I'm not getting money from them or anything like that. It's just a recommendation. You should not be using passwords, any password, in more than one place. And you need to use secure passwords, right? So how do you come up with a secure password? One of the ways is to string a whole bunch of words together, make random sentences. One of the ways is to think of a sentence and use the first letter from every word in the sentence. So you have like a sentence or two sentences to get a nice long password that seems pretty random. And maybe you change some of the letters for numbers, but it's something you can say to yourself because you've got a sentence. But how many of those can you remember versus how many sites do you go to? So I use a tool called LastPass, which you saw pop up a little bit earlier. LastPass.com. Please be the right address. Yes, LastPass. So I use a tool called LastPass. It's free if you're only using it on the browser. If you also want to install the mobile app, then it's like $12 a year. That's nothing. And even if you don't install the mobile app, you can get to it from the browser on your mobile devices. So really, you don't really have to pay if you don't want to. The thing about LastPass, it saves all of your passwords in an encrypted file. You have the keys, they don't. And you use one long passphrase of your choosing to basically keep and encrypt all of those passwords and to be able to get to them from anywhere. Once you have it installed as an app on your phone or as a plugin in your browser, it can automatically fill things in. If you prefer not to use it as an app or as a plugin, you can log into LastPass on the browser, on the website, non-plugin-ish, and open up the vault, find the thing that you need, and copy and paste your passwords over. So then it's not an app, it's not a plugin, depending on your level of paranoia or whatever. Is it 100% safe? Absolutely not. Like anything else, I'm handing over some level of trust to another company. I know that they have every intention to keep my information private, but LavaBit had every intention of keeping their customers private, and they had to close down in order to not break that. So LastPass stands by what they're saying in terms of they are not capable of handing over our passwords. They do not have the information to hand over. Could they be forced by the government the way that they were trying to force LavaBit to create backdoors? Maybe they could, maybe they can't. I don't know. I haven't read LastPass's code, so I couldn't tell you. But at least, as far as it stands right now, they seem like a pretty secure place to stick passwords, and I'm going ahead and trusting them. And it's a lot better in terms of risk possibilities, right? The potential of something going wrong. If I'm using the same passwords in lots of places, and one of those gets broken into, all of the other places I use that password are now vulnerable. Not to mention the fact that any password you've ever used that's been broken is on somebody's dictionary somewhere, which means that password is not only not available to you, it's not available to anybody because it will be used to crack other passwords. So the more varied passwords that you have, and the crazier and the less dictionary-able they are, the safer you are, and actually, in some ways, the safer everybody is. So that's the last of that. Does anybody have any questions? I guess not. Okay, so you can learn more from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They have many, many wonderful pages on their website. They specifically have a section on defensive technology that I encourage you to read and explore. Sorry. And this Prezi, let me see really quickly. Prezi, is it user? Yeah. User Lisha Vita. So if you go to Prezi user Lisha Vita, that's probably the easiest way. Nope, that is not how you find me. It might be Lisha Sterling. Just to make things complicated. Is that right? Nope. Okay, never mind.
Prezi is a place for presentations?
Prezi is a place for presentations. That is correct. So I'm going to make a bit.ly right now that will make sense. So let's paste the link here, and we'll call it Cyber for Everyone. That sounds like... okay, no. That's not what I meant. CS. We'll call it CS for everyone. How's that? CS for everyone. So, And I'll share that on Twitter. My Prezi for at pumping station. I am Lisha Vita. Wait, you guys are pumping station 1 like that?
Numeral, yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. So that should help make it a little bit easier because that URL is a bit
How do you spell that on Twitter?
obtuse.
L-E?
Lisha Vita is L-I,
Oh, this is on Twitter, right?
right, on Twitter. LISHEVITA. So you can find me pretty much everywhere at that username. It's kind of a Hispanicized diminutive of Elisheva. So that's why it confuses everybody except Hebrew speakers and Spanish speakers. Sorry, guys. So, anyway, thank you so much. Thanks for your patience and for hanging out with me a little bit extra late. And if you guys have any questions, let me know.